Welcome to the Stay at Home Nurse Podcast. I'm your host, Deanna Cooper Gillingham, bedside nurse turned lifestyle entrepreneur. I started my career as a nurse in 1994 and worked in a variety of settings, eventually landing a dream job as a work-from-home case manager. But it still did not give me the freedom and flexibility I desired. So in 2014, I created a side hustle that turned into a multi-six-figure lifestyle business, allowing me to leave my job and move to the Caribbean in 2016. I haven't looked back since. I now travel the world while running my business. I have fulfillment, freedom, flexibility, and fun. I want the same for you. This podcast is here to inspire and equip you to live your best life. Let's get started. Welcome to this edition of the Stay at Home Nurse Podcast. Today we have a special treat for you, Courtney Noel. Courtney is very special. I ran across her searching through YouTube and instantly fell in love, and I am sure you are going to fall in love also. So, Courtney solves the problem of nurses that want to get into utilization review or that are in utilization review and maybe struggling a little bit because it is very different from what a bedside nurse does. So, Courtney, tell us a little bit about the nurses that come to you and where they are when they first come.
Yes, so the nurses that come to me are very strong clinically. They 9 times out of 10 have been at bedside nursing for a while, and they want to leave the bedside and learn how to do utilization review or transition into that specialty. And the issue there is that the utilization review is a totally different mindset than a clinical mindset. So I assist them with changing the way they view the patients and the charts that they review to a more utilization style of approach for the cases.
I love that you talk about mindset. It's very important, and we talk about it a lot on the podcast. And it really goes into the way that you think about something and the way that you look at it. So I know I mentioned mindset, but I don't think I actually talk about what it is. But it's just your view, the lenses that you're looking at something through and how you have to change that. So what are you finding that nurses who are great nurses, why are they struggling with utilization review? You would think it's something that they would just naturally go into.
Right. Well, when it comes to utilization review, we are looking at it from a reimbursement standpoint. So there are criteria, typically Milliman and Interqual are the most popular ones, and they are used to give us guidelines of what is an observation level of care versus an inpatient level of care. And this is important because that is how we, the payer or the providers are reimbursed or the payers have to pay. So we look at the patient's chart in that lens. Is this appropriate for an inpatient level of care, which is more money, or is it appropriate for an observation level of care, which is not? So it's hard to kind of grasp that concept because we may be throwing a lot of things at this patient intervention-wise, but that still does not make them be appropriate for a higher level of care. So trying to get the nurses that are thinking, okay, I did this, I started this drip, I gave oxygen, this has to be inpatient level of care. That is not necessarily true. And trying to change that mindset to look at it from the utilization lens is where it kind of gets touchy. And there's some assistance where I come in with the assistance.
So it sounds like it's not how busy the nurse was. It's more patient focused on what the patient was going through.
Yes, exactly. And typically it's about how they use a lot of medical guidelines of what the plan of care should be. So they look at it from ultimately the physician's medical judgment and the interventions that he or she as the physician provided that patient. Did it align with an inpatient level plan of care or an observation level plan of care? So even though we could have done a lot of different things, even if the patient is physically in the intensive care unit, they still could be an observation level of care. So trying to get that concept, it takes time, it takes practice, and it takes a little bit of just mental shift to really become proficient in utilization review.
And I think one of the important things to remember as a nurse that's considering this is you are going from a nurse who sees the patient and does for the patient and doesn't really care what kind of insurance they have. If they have insurance, they just need the care. And so you're looking at it from that lens of, I have a sick patient, I need to help them. And utilization management, utilization review, case management, all looks at it a little bit differently because they're taking in the financial aspect, which I think for a lot of nurses is hard. Money is hard for nurses, no matter how we look at it, whether it's our own personal money, whether it is the money of the patient. And I think that's one thing that I always like to kind of stress is this affects the patient and how much money they will spend out of pocket. So you are helping the patient by correctly knowing what status you should be putting them at. Am I correct?
You are absolutely correct. And it affects, like you said, the out of pocket. And we all know at times that sometimes these fees can be very expensive. So if we're not doing our job, people can go into high medical debt. And we don't want to do that to them. We want them to be able to enjoy their funds. We still advocate for our patient, even though we don't directly provide care for them. So you're absolutely correct. If we're not doing our job, it could be a lot of financial obligations for the patients.
And a perfect example of this was my mother was in the hospital. She had a massive stroke. It was very touch and go for a long time. She spent 2 weeks in the ICU. She was medevaced from one hospital to another. She actually had 2 ER visits because the first hospital said, we can't handle her, sent her to the second hospital who said, we can handle her, but there's a better hospital, and medevaced her to a third hospital. She spent 2 weeks in rehab and had outpatient rehab. And her out of pocket, because she asked me, how much is this going to cost once she was feeling better and at home? And I was like, you're going to just max out your everything. And she didn't. She did not, because she was inpatient. Now, a year later, she had an episode where she vagaled while having a CT scan to check the surgery that she had a year earlier for that stroke. Only a year later, she was observation status because of a syncopal episode, and she paid more money for that overnight stay because she was observation status. So
that's a great example.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's so important, like as nurses and as you are nurses, it is such an important job to make sure the doctors don't know or care. They're just like, this is what the patient needs. They need this, 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 and this. But they have to admit them to a status, and that goes into reimbursement. And so the UR nurse is actually the one that's telling the doctor, this is the status that they meet. Based on what's in this chart, this is what they meet. And sometimes they're even telling them, yes, it meets an inpatient level, but you need to chart this so that it meets that, so it shows that it meets that inpatient level. So they have a very important job.
Yes. And you utilize a lot of skills. So if you're one of those nurses who are scared to speak to physicians, you might want to think twice, because you're going to have to speak up and advocate for the role. Because sometimes these physicians, especially our older physicians who have relationships with their patients, they understand that out of pocket is less for an inpatient status, but the patient may not warrant that, but it's a relationship they have with that patient. So, we'll admit it to inpatient status, where you have to say, no, your plan of care does not align with that. So either, you have to prove that with your documentation, or we need to be facilitating a discharge. And those are not pleasant conversations to have, but we have to be able to have them professionally and cordially, because at the end of the day, it is a financial obligation, be it on the provider, if you're working from the provider side, the payer side, or on the patient.
It is. And if you're on the provider side, they could not get paid for that stay if it's not properly documented what status they're in and that they actually belong in that status, the whole thing. So your hospital's not getting paid for that. And since COVID, a lot of hospitals are in a lot of bad situations, and hospitals have actually closed. So again, this makes the UR nurse's job extremely important to the job safety of every nurse in that organization. Because if the money's not coming in, the care is not being provided, and you're not getting a raise.
We're not getting a raise. And then there are also valuable things. Maybe you have some repairs that need to be done on some imaging equipment, or you need something that this money that the nurses or the UR nurses help to get reimbursed helps the facility or your healthcare system on a whole. So our job is very important, even though we're quiet and we're in our own sector. I like to call us the money of the hospital. We make sure that the boat is floating.
Right. So that when you need extra help, you need extra people. When you need something, the money has to be there. Everybody knows the first question is, where are we going to get the money? And the UR nurses are making sure the money's coming in and all the care is getting paid for that you're providing.
And another thing that utilization review nurses do, and we don't talk about it enough, is that we collect a lot of data, and it drives changes. So say, for instance, you work at a facility that has a lot of cardiac patients that come through over the weekend and they don't get CAT. Well, we're recording that data and saying, hey, this patient stayed all over the weekend. We have avoidable delays. Maybe we need to open our cardiac cath unit on Saturdays, or maybe we need to staff this on Saturdays. So we do a lot of data collection for the facility as well, in addition to driving finances.
So you're making change. You're a change maker.
Yes, change maker. It's quiet as kept and it's slow rolling because we all know, you need the data to show that it's worthy, but we're changing just in the background, as nurses always do.
So even somebody who is not even considering this type of a role, a nurse that is listening to this episode is going to learn who to go to when you need changes made, because as nurses, we see it, but we don't have the data behind it. And so going to your UO department and saying, do we have any data to support this? That can make the changes actually go from, okay, I'm observing this. Is this really happening what I'm observing? Do we have numbers to prove it? And how can we change it?
Right. And I think that's a great point, because especially if you're driving change and you have the capability to speak to the department and say, hey, can you track for our department how many days is this or who does that? We drive the data, and believe me, we collect a lot of it. And it has proven, even in my facility now, it has proven to make some changes, but it takes a while. But once the data is there, nobody can deny the numbers,
Right. That's what they look for, the numbers.
The numbers. Absolutely.
So there's two aspects to this. You can work for utilization review in the hospital, which is a lot of what we're talking about, but you can also work on the payer side, which is just as important. And on the payer side, it's a little bit different because you're looking at contracts. And what patient A has a contract for and patient B has a contract for could be totally different. And the benefits that they have for these different things can be totally different. So on that end, you're still doing a lot of work that is not necessarily patient-fronted, but it's affecting the patient, to making sure that they get the best care that they can get, that their contract allows. So kind of doing the same thing and advocating for the patient if they meet the criteria, making sure that they get what they deserve to get. So I want to kind of go back to the beginning here. What we talked about, I think it's an exciting role. It's a very analytical role. How is it different from the bedside, and how do you help nurses that would like to do this or are doing it but are having trouble with that transition?
It is a very analytical role. When I transitioned, it took me a minute because there was no formal forms of education. It was kind of each one teach one in the facility. So it takes, I would say, get your mindset and start to understand. If you are clinical and you're your bedside and you are thinking about transitioning, maybe stopping into your case management or utilization review department and understanding first and foremost, what is the inpatient level of care and what is observation level of care? And also understanding the implications of a patient being a Medicare patient, because that is a totally different ball game as well.
It is a totally different.
It's a totally different ball game. But just becoming a little bit more aware of how you take care of the patients and what level of care they fall into and why. I would say if you're still bedside and thinking about transitioning. Now, if you're already in the role and you are having some difficulty understanding, that is where I would say seek. If you're not seeking others in your organization, seek people who can give you a realistic view of how to understand the ebbs and flows of utilization management.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to, one of the things you first said was, it's kind of each one teach one. And that's why we both do what we do. So, you think about it as a nurse, and when we go from, working in med surg to working in oncology to working even in home care to ICU to labor and delivery, and these are all places that I've worked. And I've always had orientations, and I followed another nurse and precepted with them and learned the ropes. But it was very easy in most aspects to transfer to those areas. You have a lot of transferable skills. In utilization management, you have transferable skills, but they are very different. The transferable skills that you have are the ability to, read the notes, know what's going on with the patient, advocate for your patient, understanding your patient's needs, how sick a patient is, reading the documentation, but it's not assessing lung sounds. It's not any of those things that we do day to day. It's not starting an IV. It doesn't matter if you can get a Foley in, easily. It doesn't matter if you can get a hard stick on the first try. None of those things matter anymore. So that is why we both do what we do. We both saw people that were struggling at these roles. They wanted to get away from the bedside, or they needed to get away from the bedside. They have these roles that they could be really good in, but nobody's giving them the training, because if they're hiring you, it's because they need another person. It's not because things are great on the unit. They're not going to overstaff. So number one, you're going into a unit where they already don't have enough people. And you are now taking one FTE, one full-time employee, and making them work slower so that they can show you how to do what they do. And they will show you how to do it, but they won't tell you. It's hard to explain why they're doing it. It slows them down even more. So you're going to learn, we go here and we grab this chart, and then we go over here and we put this information in, but you're not learning the whys, the hows. You're not learning Medicare conditions of participation, which, as you said, you need to know. You need to understand Medicare. It's a whole other beast. You're not learning all these things, the why behind it. So it makes it very hard to stop doing the tasks and start doing the thinking, the critical thinking. And it doesn't give you the voice you need when you need to advocate for a patient, or when you need to go to a doctor and say this doesn't meet criteria, because you don't know why it doesn't. It's just somebody told you it doesn't, that we don't do these this way. So I hate to see nurses leave a job, think that they've got this great opportunity, and then struggle. So we both have created resources for this. I have a course that actually teaches everything you need to know. It's actually like going to a college course on this is what you need to know just to start off. What are Medicare conditions of participation? What are the legal things that you have to know to do your job every day? Why are you doing this? What is the reason that you're doing it? And actually getting that hands-on experience with the MCG, which used to be Milliman Care Guidelines, but I'm not allowed to say those words anymore because I license their software. Yeah. But it is MCG, and they are care guidelines that help you understand what if the patient meets criteria for a variety of things, whether it's an outpatient service, whether it's inpatient, whether it's observation status. So this way, when you go to that job, you have that knowledge that when they show you this is how we do it, you already know why you do it, which is a big advantage.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that it's great that you have that course and you're prepping them, because you're absolutely correct. Once you're hired, they kind of want you to be hitting the ground running. And especially if you're being hired from the bedside they may give you a little bit of cushion to say, hey, we'll teach you this and that, but they need you to work because they have the load. So it can be hard to make the adjustment. And like I said, it was each one teach one for me. Nobody really sat down and taught me the why. I had to learn. So that's why I really like to offer, the support services of those newly trained UR nurses. If you have those questions that maybe you're afraid to ask your preceptor, or you're afraid to ask one, or just you want to get down to the nitty gritty of why this is that. That's why I offer that kind of support to those nurses, because I know how hard it was to make that transition.
And we have a Facebook group. It's called Case Managers Community, and we have a lot of case managers and utilization managers. And they talk a lot about how they're afraid to ask at work, because maybe if they ask too many questions, then people think that they don't know what they're doing, or they're not picking it up. And what's great about what Courtney offers is you can ask that in a safe place. And nobody's going to say, well, she's, I already told her that, or I don't understand. Or when you're asking why, and they're rolling their eyes because they're like, we don't have time to explain why we do it. Just do it this way. This is the way we do it. And if you're like me, I have to know why I'm doing something. That's how I learn. I learn by knowing the why behind what we're doing. Just tell me, give this form to this person, but this person gets this one. But okay, if I understand why I'm giving this one to this person and another one to another person, then I will always get it correct. But if I'm just told, some people were going to get this one and some people are going to get that one. No, we don't give that one to her. I need to know why, or I'm not going to be able to be successful. And we really want you to be successful. And yes, in a perfect world, hospitals would provide this training, and insurance companies would provide this training, and your employer would provide this training. But we don't live in a perfect world. And I have yet to see a place that offers really good onboarding and training for their nurses going into case management or utilization management. Their thought is, you're a nurse, figure it out.
Yeah. And as you mentioned earlier, post-COVID, as things are starting to get tighter on the financial front, they're not really able to invest into making their onboarding process or their training process as defined as it should be when it comes to these roles, because again, it's not really patient facing. So at the end of the day, they would rather, I think, pour into the ones where patient safety is at the forefront, and, let us, those in the background, just kind of figure it out, for lack of a better way to say it. So I totally agree. I haven't seen it either.
And it's hard. I know it's hard for us to do this. Like, I really wish that the hospitals would pay for it, because I feel like it's their responsibility. But then I look at other professions that are out there. Like, I look at like accountants and lawyers, and they all pay for their own training. So we're a profession and we want to get better and we want to move up in the world. We need to be okay with investing in ourselves so that we can get the training we need to succeed. Yes, in a perfect world, the hospitals would do it, but they're not. So you have a choice. You can either struggle, you can fail. I know a lot of nurses don't make it through their 90-day orientation because they're just not picking it up fast enough. And a lot of times that's when they come to me, when they're like, I didn't pick it up fast enough and now I don't know what to do. I really want to stay away from the bedside. But so we want you to succeed and hit the ground running and not have to put on your resume that you had to leave a job because you weren't picking it up fast enough, and then try to get another job and they're going to be like, well, what makes you think you can pick it up now? So we want you to succeed. Be very thoughtful about what you want to do and how you can set yourself up for success. And there are resources out there to help you do that. And there's something that goes back to mindset is of when you fail and what it does to just the way you think about yourself. And if we can prevent that by giving you all the tools and resources up front so that you have a much better chance of succeeding. And if you're there and you're struggling, call Courtney. Courtney is great. She has such a great personality, and you explain things in a way that is entertaining and fun, but yet knowledgeable. So it's not like reading a book.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yes, I mean, I enjoy it. Really, I think that's what makes it so much fun for me. I actually enjoy utilization review. I enjoy the analytical part of it. I enjoy knowing the new rules that come out. I enjoy applying them. I finally have found my place in nursing when it comes to specialty. And it took me a while to get here. And I know a lot of nurses struggle with that. And like you said, I want nurses to be happy in the roles that they transition to. And sometimes utilization review can be very much gatekept. And if you are fortunate enough to get that position, I want to ensure that you are the best and you are the most efficient and you are the most productive, because that's what's going to help you stay in that role and hopefully create the work-life balance that nurses desire and they deserve.
And there's something to be said about the nurse that can come in and understand her role quickly. We've had a lot of people that can actually move up into more leadership roles because they see, oh, wow, she started here a year ago and she hit the ground running, and she's coming to us about things that will save us money and changes that we can make, and she's updating the policies and procedures, and she's helping other people to learn it because you actually understand it and you can explain it to people. And then they're like, wow, she can really move up. So it's also a way of, like, if you ever want to get into something that's more leadership, this is a way of showing that you are a leader because you have taken these extra steps to understand it. You understand the importance of learning your role. You take the responsibility for it and you run with it.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, it's kind of like you said, an in-between, because you're also privy to more things that are corporate level or executive level where they have initiatives that they're trying to support with the data, or they have things that they're just trying to finance, and utilization review is privy to those conversations, and it puts you in front of those certain people, the playmakers of your organization. So I would 100% agree. If you're trying to have a transition into leadership, utilization management, case management is also definitely the way to go. And
these are roles that you're working at the top of your license. You're actually collaborating with the physicians, and you're collaborating sometimes with the CFO. to make decisions about what's going to be happening in your organization?
I mean, I feel like we collaborate with everybody down to the knitting with patient financial services. And in accordance with certain guidelines, Medicare guidelines, you have to speak with your finance department. You have to speak to the CNO or the nursing director who's on. So there is very much a lot of collaboration that goes on, especially from the provider side and from the payer side as well, because they also collaborate with their physician. They also collaborate with their CMO. So it is a lot of opportunity to develop that muscle of leadership prior to actually obtaining a leadership role.
So we've already talked about the nurses that may be doing this. Maybe they're new to it and they're struggling a little bit to kind of get the handle on it. What about nurses that are interested in this? And like you said, it can be very much gatekept. So how can you help a nurse either has been trying to get in for a while and hasn't had the opportunity, keeps getting the door shut, or isn't even hearing anything, just crickets when she's sending out the resume, or a nurse that maybe is thinking about it and just wants to get started? How can you help them?
Well, of course, I also offer the calls for that, and I do a lot of resume revision. So I review the resumes, offer some little tips or assistance, or I can also rewrite the resume if that's something that somebody's interested in. But once that happens and you say you get the interview, I do an interview prep. So I try to prep the nurses so that they use the experience that they have in the interview to convey that they have the capability to change their mindset to view things from a case management, utilization management standpoint. So there's ways that I can help assist to obtain the position and also keep the position. Awesome.
I love that. And your primary platform is YouTube.
Yes, that is my baby. That is my baby, my channel. It's called I Am Courtney Noel. And I try to display a lot of nursing issues and a nursing topic, specifically in the utilization management, utilization review space. I answer a lot of questions. I make videos on different things. And as far as we talked about mindset, the inpatient level of care, what kind of dyad or triad or models that case management operates, because as clinical nurses, we don't understand. We see the case managers, we work with them. Okay, I have to have my patient ready to go at this hour. Okay, I have to sign this form. But we don't understand what these case managers or the utilization managers do and how it operates. And I try to give an understanding. So that way, when you're in these roles, you have the why, like you said before, of why you do the things that you do. So that's what my channel is geared toward. And I throw in some things that are more fun, like lifestyle vlogs, the work from home nurse, those type of things to keep it fun and light. But I also like to provide educational information for nurses who want to transition into this space.
Yes, so if you look at her channel, you will find there's a plethora of information of everything from entertaining to and fun. Everything is entertaining and fun, but then some of it is very informative as well as being entertaining and fun. So yeah, I can get lost in there and just kind of start watching because she's very entertaining. The time will definitely go by very quickly as you're watching. So I would love to, people here are listening to podcasts. They may or may not be on YouTube. So if they go to YouTube, do they just type in, I am Courtney Noel, and they'll see your stuff?
I'm Courtney Noel, and I should pop up. Yes, that's my name. That's my handle on YouTube. And then on Instagram, it's like im.courtney.noel. So those are the two platforms I use a lot, but mainly my baby is my YouTube channel. I have a community space that you can interact, or if you leave comments, or you can email. I'm free to answer any questions that anyone may have in regards to transition into our space. Because I want our nurses to be happy and understand. Because you know what? I've noticed that a lot of nurses post-pandemic are really thinking about leaving the profession. And I think it's because they don't know that things like this exist. So if I can help keep a nurse in the profession and keep them working and happy, my job is done. I feel blessed.
And we both have the same heart for nurses and keeping them in. They worked so hard to get through nursing school, to pass that NCLEX. And, you worked hard for it. We want to keep you as nurses. We need good nurses. So if that means transitioning to something else, then we want to help you do that and be successful with it so that you stay in nursing. Absolutely.
And I mean, I love what you've done, especially with your case. I'm like an advocate for your book, the CCMA. You guys, if you haven't gotten it or read it and you're in a case management space and want to get certified, listen, that is how I got my certification. I studied that book. So I know you have a heart for seeing the nurses reach or become or reach their highest potential.
Absolutely. Yes. I love to see nurses succeed. And I feel like, I feel like you have the same feeling as nurses work really hard. They work really hard, and anything that we can do to support them to make their life easier, their job easier, and to make them more successful, we want to do. So that's why we're here. Let's make it easier for you so you can struggle for a year trying to figure things out and hopefully get it, or you can just talk to Courtney and have a wonderful conversation with her and hire her to help you through this transition so that you can be the best. And then you can pay it forward to new nurses that are coming in because you can help them to understand the why, because now you understand it correctly. That's another thing we're seeing is, we're talking to a lot of organizations, and it's called realigning the team, because everybody came in, they all learned from somebody different. You're just like, today you're with Mary, tomorrow you're with Sue, and Sue's telling you the way Mary taught you isn't the way you should be doing it. You should be doing it this way. And you're confused and you're overwhelmed. And then after about 5 years of that, you get a team that nobody's doing everything the same way. Nothing's aligning. And this is one of my soapboxes that I'm just going to get on for a very short period of time. If we as nurses want to be respected by other professions like doctors, like the administration at the hospital, we have to talk well about each other. And when we are doing the nurses eat their young thing, we don't realize we're making our whole profession as a whole look worse. Nobody's taking us seriously. They think that all of us are like the dumbest person that you keep talking about, that, oh, she did it that way. Well, that's not how we do it. That is never what you say to anybody about another nurse, because they think that we're all stupid. We don't know what we're doing. So we really, Courtney and I really believe in supporting our nurses. And I know the listeners of this podcast feel the same way, because they wouldn't be listening because they've heard me preach it. But we need to be really supporting each other, helping each other, teaching each other, and making sure that if there is something like that happens, like, oh, Mary taught you to do it that way. Let me talk to her and see. Maybe we need to get on the same page, or maybe she has something that she can show me. Supporting, not making people feel like the other person is stupid and I'm the only person that's right. Okay, I'll get off that soapbox.
No, I 100% agree with you, because we have to support each other. Number one, this is the profession that is voted most trusted by the public. So we have a duty to the people, the communities that we serve. But not just patients or doctors. We owe each other to be a sisterhood or a family, to make sure that everybody is supported and that all of us as nurses reach our highest potential. And tearing down another nurse does not make you a better nurse. It actually makes you... Anyway, we're not going to go there. But we have to support each other, because, like you said, other professions do. The firefighters do. The police officers do. They all band together and support each other. And as nurses, we need to do the same, and especially those coming in, because one day, you never know, you may be on the other side of the bed, or your loved one, and you want to make sure that nurse that is taking care of you or your loved one is supported and feels like she's a part of a profession that really cares about her or him.
Absolutely. Thank you. Very well said. Very well said. So if somebody is interested in your services, let's say they've been trying to get into utilization review, they're having trouble, they would love to have you look at their resume, how would they get in touch with you?
Really, you can send an email to me, or I also have a website, which I will get to you. I don't have it on top of my... Well, email me is the best. Let's just say email me, and then I'll be able to talk to you, speak to you, and just navigate you and see what best works for you and how I can assist.
And where would they email you at?
So my email is iamcourtneynoel@gmail.com.
So iamcourtneynoel@gmail.com, just like your YouTube channel.
It's like my YouTube channel, yes.
And of course, we'll have that in the show notes for you. And you will not be disappointed if you reach out to Courtney. I'm just so excited that we finally got to have you on the podcast. And I want to thank you for your time. This has been amazing. And I think we've covered so many great topics. Is there anything that I missed that you want to get out there?
No, I just want to reiterate that I know how hard and how a lot of nurses are burnt out. And I just want to iterate that we have created resources for you. Don't go off the deep end and leave the profession just yet. Try it out, see what you can do if you transition into the case management and utilization management space. and hopefully it'll be a safe haven for you to continue your nursing career. Please don't leave the profession.
Agree. Please don't leave the profession. And, if this episode is not for you, but you might know somebody that it is for. Maybe you have a colleague or a friend who is really getting burned out and they just need some encouragement that they can still stay a nurse, still have that great income, still continue to use all of the skills that they have acquired, all of the knowledge that they've acquired in the nursing profession, and start to love nursing again. Please send them this episode so that they can hear about Courtney and how she can help them to explore utilization management as an option.
So much. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure to be here with you. It's a great conversation.
Yeah, I always enjoy talking with you, Courtney. And
Me too.
Okay, thanks, guys. That's a wrap for this episode. We look forward to you reaching out to Courtney, to us, whatever we need to do to make sure you're supported. We are here for you.